Welcome to our final musical episode of Get the Dirt. You're right. I should have said, did you know the library is full of dirt? Join us this summer as we get the dirt. But seeing this is our last episode, our tagline is kind of running out of time. But since Get the Dirt is on YouTube, you can go back and watch any missed episodes or your favorite episodes again and again and again and again and again and again. We started our musical adventures learning about the orchestra, and we'll end our musical adventures with another musical ensemble. Our first musical ensemble is normally viewed a bit more formally, while this, our last musical ensemble, covers a vast array of styles. And that musical ensemble is band. There are so many different kinds of bands. Here are just a few. All-female band, big band, boy band, Christian band, church band, concert band, cover band, dance band, fife and drum, garage rock band, girl group, heavy metal band, family band, jam band, jazz band, jug band, klezmer band, marching band, military band, orchestra, organ trio, rock band, rock supergroup, school band, ska band, studio band, tribute act, ukulele band, worship band. Pretty much, you can name any group of musicians with any style of music a band. Hey, what do you call a group of musicians that bounces and performs? A rubber band. Let's get the dirt on the difference between an orchestra and a band. Bands can be as few as one-man bands. Most commonly, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Marching bands tend to have more people, but often less than 50. But the size of an orchestra is between 75 and 100 people. Smaller orchestras of 50 or less people are called chamber orchestras. Bands are primarily composed of instruments requiring a person's wind to make them work, like brass and woodwinds, along with percussion support for consistent rhythm. Orchestras have strings, brass, woodwinds, and percussion. Sometimes they also have a piano. Bands play any type of music, including symphony, jazz, and pop. Vocalists can be part of a band. Marching bands are associated with playing marches in parades. Orchestras mostly play symphonies and classical music. Bands play in various places, both in private settings as well as in large concert halls. Many also play in parades and entertainment venues. Orchestras commonly play in a concert setting. Bands are a type of musical ensemble, and so are orchestras. Bands date to antiquity, but were strictly military. Orchestras date to ancient Egypt. John Philip Sousa and American War Between the States era brought bands to citizens. The Baroque era refined what we know of as an orchestra. Bands entered into public schools after World War I as an outlet for United States veterans to pass the music down. Orchestras are rare in public schools. A marching band is often led by a drum major. The term drum major is a leftover military term from the American War Between the States. Regiments in the Army had a colonel at headquarters giving orders. Bands were another regiment. A captain is in charge of a section of instruments. The major was the go-between the colonel and the captains, drums being the instrument used for signaling commands. Get the dirt on signaling commands in the book Drummer Boy at Bull Run by Gilbert Morris, and in the book The Last Brother, written by Trinka Hakes Noble and illustrated by Robert Papp. After the American War Between the States, bands were brought to civilian life. The term colonel became band director. Drum majors carry out the director's orders on the field to each section of a band, which has a captain. Orchestras are led by conductors. Concertmaster is the leader of the first violins and is under the conductor. This position is also called the first chair, or the leader. Now that we got the dirt about bands versus orchestras, use these clues to help you identify why each of these types of ensembles are considered bands and not orchestras. Let's start digging deeper by the one who helped develop band music, John Philip Sousa. Here's a picture book about the life of John Philip Sousa. It was written by Mike Venezia and is found in the 921 section of the library because if the address says 92 or B, you have found a biography. Mike Venezia is an author visual thinkers may enjoy. He uses vivid pictures and imagery to create books about musicians, artists, inventors, or more. John Philip Sousa was born in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America, in 1854. He always loved his country and showed his love by writing some of the most original and patriotic music ever. John Philip Sousa is best known for his thrilling marches. The unusual titles he gave them may be unfamiliar to some people today, but almost everyone has heard El Capitan, the Washington Post, High School Cadets, Manhattan Beach, King Cotton, and Semper Fidelis at one time or another. These marches are always being played in movies, TV shows, parades, and by school bands. John Philip Sousa said that when he wanted to write a march, he would sometimes try to imagine scenes of battles with rifles firing and cannons exploding. He would hear the clanking of swords and the sound of the soldiers marching to the drum beat. All of a sudden, a tune would come to him. He was always amazed at how this happened. Sousa also composed music for operettas. An operetta is a short, usually comic play in which the actors sing and dance their parts as the orchestra plays along. John Philip Sousa was proud of the music he wrote for these plays. He liked some of it better than some of the marches he composed. John couldn't understand why his operetta music never became as popular as his marches. It was always a disappointment to him. Before John Philip Sousa was born, the United States didn't really have music it could call its own. The United States was a fairly new country, and American composers had not yet become well known. In big cities, people went to concerts and listened to the work of European composers like Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart. Tickets to these concerts were expensive. People had to dress in fancy clothes to get in. Everyone was pretty snobby about the whole thing. In the rest of the country, people had to listen to bands and musical entertainers who weren't very good a lot of the time. Everyone wanted to hear music so much, though, that they were happy to accept anything that came along. While John Philip Sousa was growing up, he was fortunate to be able to listen to the many military bands that played in Washington, D.C. At that time, the Civil War was going on. Washington, D.C. was almost like an armed camp and was under attack at times by Confederate soldiers. Army bands were all over the place. They were needed to announce daily activities or to send commands and signals. They were also an important way of keeping soldiers happy during long, boring marches. Sometimes bands would play old, familiar songs that reminded soldiers of happier times. These military bands made a deep impression on John Philip Sousa. John Philip Sousa grew up in a musical family. His father played the trombone in the United States Marine Band. Mr. Sousa encouraged his son to take violin lessons at an early age. He had taught him to play the trombone and other band instruments as well. Soon, John's parents and teachers knew John had a special musical talent. When he was only 11 years old, John put together a dance band that played in the Washington, D.C. area. He was the leader of 7 grown men, and the band became pretty popular. When John Philip Sousa was 13 years old, the circus came to his town. One night, the owner of the circus heard John's dance band play. He really liked what he heard and asked John if he would like to join the circus and become their band leader. John Philip Sousa thought traveling around the world with the circus would be a great idea. He decided to join up and run away from home. Fortunately, Mr. Sousa found out about the plan. The next morning, he marched his son down to the Marine barracks and signed him up in the Marine Corps band. At the age of 13, John Philip Sousa was a United States Marine. He was also in a place where his father could keep an eye on him. At this time, the U.S. Marines were very different from the way they are today. Things weren't so strict. In fact, John and other band members could leave at the end of the day and play their instruments at dances or city concerts to make extra money. John enjoyed his stay in the Marine Band and learned a lot. After 7 years, though, he decided to leave. John felt that there were musical opportunities outside the Marine Band where he could learn more and develop his talents. John Philip Sousa began traveling to different cities where he played his violin and composed music. In one city, he met a singer from a theater group. Her name was Jane Bellis. John and Jane got married, and soon after their wedding, an important thing happened. John Philip Sousa was asked to come back to the U.S. Marine Band. This time, though, it was not as a musician, but as a leader. John was glad to accept the job. When John got back to Washington, D.C., however, he was disappointed to find the band in pretty bad shape. Many of the band members didn't want to be there anymore. Their uniforms were worn out, and the music they played seemed old and boring to John. John got to work right away. He decided to try to make this band the best military band in the world. He started by getting up new and better musicians to join up, and he made them practice for long hours. He got rid of a lot of the dull music the band was used to playing, and it replaced it with more modern music by European and American composers. John added his own marches, too. One of John's favorite assignments was to play for the President of the United States whenever he needed music for a party or special governmental affair. John Philip Sousa got to meet 5 different presidents during the time he was the leader of the Marine Band. During this time, he also wrote some of his best marches, including Semper Fidelis and the Washington Post. He even became known as the March King. The U.S. Marine Band became more popular than ever before. Sometimes thousands of people would gather for its concerts. One day after a concert, a businessman named David Blakely talked to John Philip Sousa about starting up his own band. John liked the idea. He thought that if he had his own band, he could travel more and play his great music for people all over the United States, or even all over the world. He could choose all of his favorite pieces to play and make a lot more money, too. In 1892, he left the Marines to start his very own band. After 12 years of leading the U.S. Marine Band, John Philip Sousa knew exactly how to put a successful band together. He started by hiring the best musicians he could find. He spent weeks rehearsing and training them, made sure they had the coolest looking uniforms, too. John knew his band would have to look great, as well as sound great. David Blakely became John's partner and manager. He made sure the band was set up to play in different cities and took care of advertising. When John was done putting the band together, it turned out to be a combination symphony orchestra and concert band. Sousa's band hardly ever marched, but they could play any type of music, from simple American folk songs to big, famous symphonies. From the very beginning, John Philip Sousa's band was a big hit. He always made sure he played music that everyone could enjoy. There were never any snobby feelings when the Sousa band played. John and his band traveled to as many cities and towns as possible. It was almost like a big holiday when they came to town. Schools and businesses closed, and everyone from miles around would go to the concert. Sometimes the audience loved the music so much that they demanded the band play their favorite piece over and over again. John Philip Sousa never minded doing this, especially if they wanted to hear one of his marches. John Philip Sousa's marches were, and still are popular all over the world. The idea for his most famous march, the Stars and Stripes Forever, came to him while he was traveling on an ocean liner in 1896. Later, John remembered how clearly he had heard an imaginary band play the Stars and Stripes Forever in his head as the rough sea bounced the ship back and forth. John believed this piece was inspired by God. As soon as he got home, he wrote the notes down exactly as he heard them. The powerful rhythms of this patriotic march have made people so proud of being American that they often stand while the song is being played. Let's listen to the Marine Corps Band play part of Stars and Stripes Forever. The Stars and Stripes Forever did just what John Philip Sousa thought a good march should do, which was make goosebumps chase each other up and down your back when you listen to it. Even when his band played the Stars and Stripes Forever in other countries, gave people the same kind of proud feeling as it did in the United States. For many years, John Philip Sousa and his band were among the most famous entertainers in the world. Wherever John went, kings, queens, presidents, and mayors of towns honored him. John was given so many medals, he could never wear them all at the same time. John Philip Sousa lived to be 77 years old. During a time when radio and television were not yet around, he made it possible for thousands of people all over to hear good music. He helped show how important American composers were by playing their compositions in different countries around the world. He always had fun playing music, but treated each musical piece as if it were the most important one ever, whether it was a simple street tune or a great symphony. In his band, John Philip Sousa wanted to employ tubas for the big deep mpa sound. In this book called Brass, there's a picture that shows a tuba. The concert tubas were cumbersome for a marching band, so Sousa employed J.W. Pepper to create a tuba that was designed for standing and marching. Sousa also wanted the sound to go above the heads of the band. Introducing the sousaphone. See how the tubing wraps around the tubist, or should I say sousaphonist? The way the body carries the weight of the instrument instead of the arms. This book is a great book to get the dirt on a fictionalized story based on John Philip Sousa. It's written by Patricia Polacco, and it's called John Philip Duck. Patricia Polacco is known for engaging stories based upon her real-life experiences. You can find this book in the Easy section for E under P for Polacco. As we mentioned earlier, John Philip Sousa at the end of the American War between the states brought bands to the civilians. It wasn't just in the United States that bands broadened their spectrum. In England, the Salvation Army, an organization founded to meet the physical and spiritual needs of the poor, destitute, and hungry, was helping clean up the streets of England and giving people respect and purpose. In 1879, the Salvation Army Corps Band was formed first to round up crowds of people to come to their meetings. Later, that ensemble developed into a full-fledged band with a wide repertoire of music. Unlike other bands, the Salvation Army Corps Band focused on meeting people's spiritual needs. Out of the Salvation Army Corps Band grew bands for the temperance movement. Leading brass band composers and players of the 20th century had roots in or close links to the Salvation Army. As we got the dirt from our chart, the bands that we know today stem from the military bands of the past. Bands were important for signals. First, drums were the primary signal. Then, as tactics changed by the end of World War I, brass became the prominent instruments. Besides being used as signals, bands were important for morale and keeping in step. Each branch of the United States military has its own song, which soldiers use on special occasions or when they need inspiration. The years prior to and through World Wars I and II was the big band era of music. The big band musical ensemble usually consisted of 10 or more musicians in 4 sections: saxophones, trumpets, trombones, and rhythms. The rhythm section could be a combination of guitar, piano, double bass, and drums. Big bands started as an accompaniment for dancing, which was a great source of entertainment during the time when our country was going through the Great Depression and World Wars. The United States Service Organizations, USO, serve as a homegrown entertainment link for our men and women who were serving at home and abroad. Entertainment took on many different forms, one of those being big bands. One fluid band was led by Myron Floan. Myron suffered rheumatic fever as a child, which damaged his heart. This caused him to be denied enlisting in active duty during World War II, but this didn't keep him from serving. By the time World War II started, Myron the Melody Man was quite the accomplished accordionist, and so he took his accordion abroad and performed with others as part of the USO. Often, they themselves found themselves in the midst of attacks. One song Myron and his fellow musicians played in closing each night for the troops was, "God be with you till we meet again." While the performances have changed over time, the goal of the United States Service Organization remains the same, to bring a little bit of home to our men and women in uniform until everyone comes home. Well, by this point in American history, the band scene was growing, expanding, and picking up tempo. Servicemen from World War I brought their expertise in playing in the military to the classrooms of American students. These men became band directors, introducing musical instruments to the lives of everyday children. The television industry made big band music available not just to listen to, but to watch as well. Lawrence Welk made use of Myron Flone to bring a lively accordion and big band music into people's homes. Others then took the big band concept and shaped it into bands of their own. You can get the dirt on Lawrence Welk in his autobiography, This I Believe, found in the 921 section. Next came jazz and swing music. One of these most famous musicians of it was Louis Armstrong, also called Satchmo, who's known for trumpet, and the song that's playing right now, What a Wonderful World.
Clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Through the magic of television, Soul Train, and American Bandstand, introduced citizens north, south, east, and west to an emerging style of music, jazz and swing. Immigration to the United States brought in new styles, Cajun from the bayous of the South, Scots Irish from the hills of Appalachia, Klezmer from Eastern Europe, spirituals from African and Southern plantations. One great book to get the dirt on is called A Band of Angels by Deborah Hopkinson. This is a book about the 9 young singers and a pianist who brought spirituals to the rest of the world through an effort to raise money. They were attending this university, one of the only universities in the United States that is open to African Americans, and the university was running out of money. So these 9 young people, 7 of whom were born into slavery and had been freed, traveled around the world performing music. They performed the very popular music of the day, but time and time again, no one showed up to their concerts. Finally, on their last night, lead pianist Ella sat down at the piano. Instead of playing the music everyone expected her to, she began to sing a song that she had learned growing up in slavery. The rest of the singers joined in with her, and that night the concert was so successful the university was able to stay open. These singers went on. They became the Fisk Jubilee Singers. There are still Fisk Jubilee Singers now that are carrying on the legacy and passing the music down of spirituals to the next generation. Our country was growing and changing. Times of change, growth, and upheaval came upon our country. Culturally, music brought people of similar cultures together, while at the same time music yielded to new styles that developed as they blended with each other. In the United States, rock bands, punk bands, grunge bands became a way to rebel, to break away from the authority. This was rebellion out of self-indulgence. Behind the Iron Curtain and other suppressed nations, that same rebel music became a symbol of hope and freedom. The rebellion there grew out of self-preservation and reaching for the inalienable rights endowed by their Creator: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. This is the symbol that carries on today in this next generation, who are creating a revolution.
Today we live, today we breathe, today we know that we are strong when we are weak. Today we trust, we overcome, take every chain that kept us slaves and throw them off. We're not waiting for permission, we defy our inhibition, like our middle name is fearless, unafraid. If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, eyes out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise, by the power we will go, by the spirit we are born. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
As you saw from our list, types of bands today are only limited by our imagination. You could be a one-man band with drum and cymbals, harmonica and tambourine. Your band could be you and your sibling, or next door neighbor. Reach out. Meet other musicians, improv together, and learn from each other. You'll meet new friends, see new places, get new ideas, and better understand one another. The United States was dubbed the melting pot because of its immigration of people from far-off lands coming together to become United States citizens. But if you look a little deeper at our music, America truly is a melting and melding of music and styles that give each new band its unique new sound as each generation passes the music down. Can you believe this was the last musical Get the Dirt? We have learned so much and had so much fun. Did you know that tomorrow is the last day to log your hours for the 2020 summer reading program? But it's not the last day to get the dirt. The library is available either in person or via pickup, so be sure to take advantage of this $1 million opportunity. Thanks for watching this summer. Be sure to find an instrument or several and get the dirt.